Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Absolutely Not. I am your host, Katrina Stroll, and I am dedicated to providing examples of setting personal boundaries at work and the vocabulary needed to name harm in those spaces. Some of that vocabulary includes words like harm, gaslighting, and traumatic. All of these words and their definitions can be found on my website on the resources page, as well as other words that we use frequently on the show. This episode is entitled Keep It Moving, right? It's going to be good. And it's going to be good because my special guest today is Maagic Collins. Maagic is the host of Fight the Funk podcast, where they explore mental health, culture, and the world around us. It is currently on episode 60. Yay. He works at the nonprofit Painted Brain as an outreach coordinator, counselor, and a part of the digital literacy program development team. He is also a member of the Black Mental Health Task Force, which is dedicated to Black-centered wellness. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I left out downtown Crenshaw, which is community wealth building, and they're working on purchasing the mall to build with community in mind. So I forgot to mention that as well.
Awesome. I'm glad that you were able to shout them out. But Let's talk about today's episode, Keep It Moving. Where did that title come from?
Well, I think these last few years there's been so much transition and so much like where you form all these projects and efforts with people you've never known. And you don't know all these different relationships, who's tied to who, where grudges are with who, in between who. So I think at this stage in my own evolution and growth is to understand my place as far as, am I a part of this environment, or I'm just being a tool of this environment? So it's kind of that where it's like, I'm here to help. I'm like we talked about before, whatever title I have, I'm just here to contribute. I don't want to get into people's grudges. I want to get into people, whatever who goes against who. It's like, it's not about that for me. So I think this is a part of Keep It Moving, where I gotta do this work that's inside me to do, that's been there. And I can't get caught up in the grudge matches and everybody else's, stuff. And it's like, I know I've personally have worked my butt off for my own self-development. So for me, it's like to not continue to put myself into environment or relationships where I feel like I'm just being siphoned off, or my talents and my gifts are just being exploited. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like, I'm here to work with people. And if I feel like that's being like who I am isn't accepted, then I need to keep it moving, because my gifts and talents are separated from, my life is my life. So just learning, just continuing to learn.
Oh man, that is good. That is scrumdiddly-umptious. I appreciate you sharing that with us today. What kept coming up while you were describing your experiences is the ability to draw that line. Like, hey, I'm not taking on more than I intended to take on. And how has boundaries helped you to draw that line in any organization you're a part of?
I'm still learning that, because I want to do everything. I want to do it all. Like I love it. I love doing everything. Like that's, because part of that, it feels like my gift. Like I can do, when I set my mind to something, I can do. Whoa! I'm writing a book, or oh man, I'm organizing this event. It's like there's things I know. Whatever I apply my energy to, I can start to make a difference. So for me, it's more of being more decisive as far as where I focus my energy.
Oh man, I love that word decisive, because it brings us into the decisions that you have to make. Even if you choose to do all the things for that organization, you're going to be burnt the fuck out, and they're probably going to exploit you in some way or another. Have you ever had that happen to you? You've been running around being Superman, and realize you're being exploited?
Yeah, I would say, there's because we respect and love people.
Mhm.
I think that's why that's what opens the door for that.
Mhm.
Um, and I think part of that is, okay, how much do I respect and love myself? Um, and for me, it's a matter of uh, like keeping it moving. Like, how do you move forward? Because we are all. It doesn't mean people or organizations are any less good people, or they're not freedom fighters, or they're about the purpose of the of preserving life, of
Mhm.
working for something bigger. It doesn't mean they're not about that anymore. It just means we're not in alignment.
Mhm.
And this alignment has caused more damage than good for my own personal well-being. So therefore, I have to change this alignment, and whatever that may mean is whether it's addressing it and seeing if something actually changes, which
Mhm.
a lot of times if it doesn't, the worst thing you do is keep doing it,
Mhm.
um, or taking yourself out, or addressing some of the main um, some of the main people.
Mhm.
If that doesn't work, then it's like, okay, none of that worked. Then I
Mhm.
guess it is time for me to remove myself from this environment. So it's I think that's what makes our journey tough as just humans, right? Because it's like we're all social beings and we're all trying to get things done. And especially if you have some sense of, I want to make things better
Mhm.
way beyond my time, there's a certain level of pressure you put on yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and so that becomes part of, I can't spend time in something that feels circular,
Mhm.
like where I'm feeling like I'm just being, it's like there's no really moving forward because this objective doesn't feel like the real objective that I came in for.
This objective doesn't feel like the real objective I came in for. And you used a lot of words talking about the journey that we're on. Use the word journey, use the word stages, use the word evolving. We as
Mhm.
people are constantly changing and growing and developing. And if
Mhm.
we are not cognizant of that in all the decisions we're making, then we're going to turn into that circle and just, oh, damn, how long have I been in this circle?
Mhm.
When was the last time you caught yourself in a circle?
Well, I've been on a circle since this pretty much most of this year
Mm,
because like I try to build so much in different communities. So it's like so literally I'm going on in the circle, but but it's not really a circle until I realize it's when I realized, actually I shouldn't say it's not really a circle. Um because it came back full around. Like so
mm,
the last several months to do the work and finally feel good about what I'm doing. And then it's just a long, it's like, oh, this just came back around to a different objective. That is not why I'm here. Oh man, this is a circle. So I think it's more of, I still enjoy community building and trying to lend my talents and my gifts to as many different communities as possible, but I just don't want to feel exploited doing it.
mm.
I don't want to feel like to be made to look like I'm not contributing and then seeing my work in front of me. Like that's abusive. That's toxic. So that's where I want to, the shift has to be for my own well-being, is to not just put my work out there and then be disconnected from it and then see it in front of me. So I don't know why that is a practice that's thought to be something healthy or necessary. And that's where a lot of this, I'm like, a lot of these last few years, there's the thing that popped in my head a lot was, why is this necessary?
Mm,
Why are decisions that are being made, why is any of that necessary for the work that needs to be done? To
mm,
me, it's exhaustive and it's adding work on people's plate
mm,
that doesn't need to be there. So that's like, answer your question of that time you've been in a circle. I feel like at times these last few years, that's kind of where I've been at. And also we have to look at ourselves, for why we put ourselves into those situations. And part of that is my own fault. Like I was talking to my friend where she was like, hey man, you knew what was going, that's your fault. And I was like, you know what, you're right. It's like, so you have to also look at yourself in the mirror and be like, how am I contributing to this? And this always comes back to the proving myself. Like I've showed up on so many different front lines, so many different causes, and in these Zoom rooms, these just researching all kind of like Measure J, SB bills, governor recalls, like all these bills, and it's like a lot of that is for my that it's my purpose.
Mm.
But then there's a percentage of that I'm proving myself to this group that I can do the work, that I can be that person. And it's like, I am that person. I'm done proving it. It's like, I'm a leader. I know what I bring to the table. I see all the things I've put out that are working, and that are from me. And I don't mind if it's showing back up in front of my face, because it wasn't about that anyway. But it's like, but I know I've done an amazing job. I don't need anybody to tell me that.
I don't need anybody to tell me that. You talked a lot about the exploitation of your work, and I cannot thank you enough for sharing your experiences here, because you gave me a new definition of what exploitation looks like. You said feeling like you're not contributing, even though your work is right in front of you. Man, that resonated. Thank you so much for sharing that. But in that sense, and even when you talked about your ability to point out the circles that you decided to be a part of, the phrase that kept popping up in my mind is over the top. So that like an indicator of when you're in a circle is if you feel like you're over contributing and nothing's moving forward. Who has helped you realize when you're doing over the top type work?
I had because a lot of this is new for me. Like this spiritual journey I'm on, like this is new. And I have to lean on people who've done it, who maybe not still be alive, or people that are that have a practice, and I look up to them, because like I feel it, I know it's there. I know I am who I am, but it's still new for me. And it's still, I have to ground myself and own it, and to which a lot of which I've done, but now it's still the road is still in front of me. And so I'll say the people that I look to are maybe no longer here in physical form. And then there's a few that I absolutely love, but I can't talk to them personally, where they're in different lands, they're in different countries. So I have to kind of just look at their work when they post and share their wisdom, and just kind of get that wisdom and continue to work in a situation I didn't ask for, but I've learned to accept.
In a situation I didn't ask for, but I've learned to accept. Oh my, this is another gem for me, because it reminds me of the times I've been in toxic workplace after toxic workplace. And I didn't ask to be abused. I didn't ask to be discriminated against, but I did have to accept the fact that this is what they're about. If I stay here, then I'm accepting this behavior and abuse every single day on a daily basis. When you decided that this is not what I deserve, but it is what I have to accept, what were some of the first steps you took on making sure you know what you're accepting?
Well, I think it's never over, because like, especially if because I'm in my passion, right? I'm doing the things I love to do. So if you're in that, so a lot of the unhealthy elements are always going to be there. So you just have to learn how to evolve, and know that there are people that are always wanting to exploit your gifts. But how do you build well-being and still serve that bigger picture, knowing the human elements of exploitation, that exist all over. And that's where, you know, capitalism is king in this land. So you have to, like myself, it's like I don't consider myself a capitalist, but I understand I have to bring a certain level of that into my life and ownership into my life, just to have a standpoint in some way to be here. So it's like, but I never go to that extreme, because I don't feel like this is capitalism anyway. This is some mutation of what, because it's not basic good and service when you start studying human behavior to the point of scientific levels. Like you're moving past capitalism and you're moving to conditioning. You're conditioning people to be addicts for your product. And it's like, so that's a form. So for that, it's like, I know to the degree I have to create a capitalist platform, but I also know how unhealthy it is, that of the practices we have come to normalize.
I love that gives us a way to understand that we're able to define how much we want to take in of anything we're willing to take in. For example, I'm still in a relationship with some toxic family members that are not willing to grow and develop as where I am in my life. But I only take as much as I can from them. Do you have any relationships that you're in currently that you have to kind of set those boundaries and say, I'm only taking this much?
Well, that's why I'm gonna ask for your services. Not because it's like, I think that's always evolving. Because as you go out and you're trying to make things happen, there's so many new relationships, and then those new become old, and then you don't know if you start talking to this person, that person doesn't like that person. You know, it's like that's where your boundaries are constantly having to be reaffirmed and understood for yourself. Because you might not even know, like, oh, I needed a boundary there. Oh, I need to make a different, I need to make an adjustment here. And that's, you only know as you go. So yeah, the boundaries are always evolving and changing. Because also I'm sorry, but it also depends on how the adjustments are made. Like if you say, hey, this is how I feel in this situation, and can you be real with me? And then if they are and they make adjustments, it's like, it's a relationship. Like, okay, and now what adjustments do you feel I need to make? And then boom, boom, y'all make adjustments to better coincide and complement each other. But if you express where you're coming from and those adjustments aren't made, and what you're saying is disregarded, now there's a problem. And now there's a sense of, oh, I need to not do the same thing. I need to change up as far as my boundaries go.
And I know that word change scares a lot of people, but it's needed. We've talked about this a lot, even in this episode, is we are evolving beings. You will have to let people go. Not everyone can make it to the final destination with you, and they probably will not. Very few will. So just being prepared for that is needed. It's a need that everyone needs to have. But I know that you said you're still growing on your journey of setting boundaries, but what are some of your go-to phrases that you use to set boundaries currently?
I guess I liked your you got me fucked up. But I don't really have phrases. I just have like follow my intuition more. Because there is, you know, it's like, you know, when you're being abused, you know, when you're in a cycle of abuse, and it's like, follow your intuition. And that's where so much of this, I wish I would just follow my intuition. So in so many different elements of this, it's you listening to that self, and not waiting for more signs. Because that's the part where it's like, no, you knew it from the get-go. That's where my friend says, like, no, continuing to move forward, that's your fault. But phrases, yeah, I don't have phrases. Just listen to your intuition.
That's awesome. And I think every single time we bring up the conversation, oh, go ahead.
I also add a caveat to that though, because I think also this society anything can be manipulated, and even your intuition. So it's like, so there is a caveat to that. So I say over time, if your intuition is still saying the same thing, and you've given it your due diligence to say, well, I might be wrong. And then the same thing is like, no, I'm feeling unhealthy doing this or moving forward. I always say, like, even with mental health, I always say, that whole what is it? Like push through it. For mental health is not the same to say that. And just like falling, it's like, because it's kind of like driving on flat tires where you can't push through that. You ruin the tire, you ruin the frame, and you just ruining the car. And I think so that's kind of one of those things that come into mind, where it's like, yeah, you might initially be like, my intuition says, and then because I've had situations where it actually went well, where it's like, I don't want to go, but is that my anxiety or is that my intuition? So it's hard to know the difference between those two. So that's why I say it's with a caveat of listen to your intuition. Because sometimes it's your depression, it's your anxiety that's coming off as intuition. So it's a lot it's not a phrase that's fit for everything.
And I love that you emphasize that, because even everything that we talk about on the show is not a one size fit all. You will need to implement these practices on your own, go through your relationships that you have personally on your own, and define what these mean to you and how you can implement them moving forward. I do want to repeat, it's like driving on flat tires. It will mess everything else up. So if you are not aligned with your intuition currently and are kind of second guessing your intuition, it's time to get that support system in place. Find you a therapist, find you a counselor, find you a nonprofit that helps people out, or find people that you can build community with that also have those mental health conditions as well. So they'll let you know, oh, I've been through that. Let me tell you, it's probably this or that. I know that you work and you advocate for mental health completely, but who has been your support system or the people that are helping you make sure that your intuition is aligned?
It's constantly evolving, but I would say definitely like Painted Brain, the nonprofit I started working with, because they kind of stepped in. It was a combination, but like I had an old mentor step in where he's like, man, this is whatever's going on with this dude. I see it and it's messed up. Like the first thing he did was like in April, he called me and I was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. I showed up, I'm going to these places. It's some wacky shit. And he was like, yeah, he stopped. He's like, dude, I saw it. I know, like, I've heard, like, there's some fucked up shit that people are doing to you right now. And like him affirming that was like fresh air. Cause even my friends, like my friends who I called friends for years, they couldn't just tell me truth. And I knew it, they knew it. And I was like, so it took an old mentor who knew me for a decade now, to come in and be like, you are being put through some bullshit. And I know who you are and you know who you are. So you stick to who you are and just keep working. And I needed that. I can't tell you how much I needed that at that moment. Because at that point I was like, why is this all happening? All I've done is be me, and I can only be myself. And so I needed that. And I'll say, and then Painted Brain, at that point I was so worn out. Like I like another person I work with, Nakia Fields, Therapeutic Foundation. She's the founder of Black Mental Health Task Force, along with Rachelle Chambers and Marilyn Huff. Like they have a connection of they're all building up this task force. So it was fortunate that they also kind of helped helped me get going again. Because by April, I was so into the movement and studying. I pretty much like I lost my place. It's just like, and I have friends looking at me differently for the first time in my life. I'm like, how are you guys? What in the world's going on? It's like I'm already worn down. I lost my place, and I see my friends looking at me in ways I ain't never had nobody look at me before. And it made me sick to my stomach. And some of those people I will never talk to again in days of my life. Period. And it's like, and I hope they know what they've done and they know what they try to do. And I hope they live with that. And that's where it's like, and that kind of goes back to your boundaries, where it's the people that are close to you that can hurt you because of what they believe. And then they will enforce that belief onto you.
Oh my gosh. And thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. I myself resonate so much with it, and I know my audience will as well. You talked about that validation and affirming that you got from your mentor. And for anybody out there that feels that kind of crazy feeling, like, why is this happening to me? Or why is everybody treating me this way? Go out and seek that validation or affirmation from somebody. Find somebody that knew you when you were the truest form of yourself and knew you at your deepest essence of yourself, and just try to figure out what is going on, or else you'll just feel like that. And with that validation, you were able to say, okay, I do not care about this enough. Y'all can go. It is okay. Take it with you. Thank you so much for sharing that. We are still on this journey all together, but it really helps to know that a lot of us are on this fucking journey, and it's so hard and it's so taxing, but you can do it. For the people out there that are now like, man, Maagic did it, I can do it too. I'm gonna start setting boundaries. What would be some of the tips that you give them into moving into new organizations or setting boundaries at work for the first time?
I'll say kind of sit down and write out what those boundaries are. Like, if there's certain triggers or things that you don't stand for, or that are against your own, health and well-being, kind of understanding that for yourself and not tolerating it. Like, because toleration has nothing to do with understanding anyway. I never understood the whole fight for tolerance. Like, that makes no sense to me.
Oh my goodness. Toleration has nothing to do with understanding. That took me back. I worked for a nonprofit, and anytime I had a complaint about abuse in the workplace or behavior around me, the first thing they would say to me is, well, could you seek to understand? Could you try to understand where they're coming from? No, the fuck I cannot. They are bullying me. They are being awful and abusive in a workplace, and you, whoever I was talking to, should not be standing for that either. But when you have those conversations, you're able to know, oh, this organization is not aligned with what I'm aligned with. Thank you so much for sharing that. I needed that today. I don't even work there no more.
Yeah. Because what they're saying is tolerate their behavior, because they don't want to, the boss or superior, that they don't want to do the job. So it's like, so they're telling you to tolerate it because they tolerate it.
Oh, we are getting into some stuff here, more specifically, some red flags of behavior in organizations. So if that person above you is not willing to do their job, they'll do manipulation tactics like we just discussed, and saying, well, could you just understand? Or they won't even doing what's in their job description. That was very well, she was an HR director. That was her job, to ensure that we all felt safe at work, and I did not. Oh, where's my life going? But on that note, do you have any last minute sprinkles you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I would say just treat mental health as a journey, like finding what combination of tools work for you. Because it may not just be a therapist, it may not just be a psychiatrist, it may not just be a spiritual healer. It's some element of many things. It's like, so So it's like, even with a therapist, there takes some people 10 years to find a therapist they actually love. So it's like, so even with that, it's not about the one or the second therapist. And then, no, I'm good, I tried it. So it's more of whatever you feel like you need to assistance with in your life, is like continuing that journey of seeking and finding it, and the combination of what you need. Because like you might find the therapist that you love, and then realize, oh yeah, and I need a nutritionist. Oh man, and I need somebody to just look over notes that I take or something every once a week. It's like, just find the combination you need to be healthy and thriving in this world.
Gosh, thank you so much for that. And we talked about that earlier, that plug and play. All of the things we talked about in this episode may not work for you. You may be able to tolerate more than myself or Maagic can do, but this is why these boundaries are personal to ourselves, and we need to identify them for ourselves. I just want to touch on the word assistance that you used. It is okay to ask for help in any capacity and everywhere and anywhere that you need that help. That took me a really long time. I have mental health conditions, and it still takes me a really hard time to ask for help, but please do so if you're listening out there. Once again, this is Absolutely Not. I am your host, Katrina Stroll. My amazing special guest today was Maagic Collins. His information will be in the show notes, so please read the show notes. Reach out to him if you have questions about boundaries, mental health, or transitioning from organizations to a more aligned organizations. This episode will be published and it will be on my website, www.katrinastroll.com. Until next time, please continue to set those boundaries and say absolutely not to anything unaligned. We'll see you next time. Bye.